What went so well for the Pacers in their Game 4 win over the Knicks, and what is repeatable as they head to a potentially series-clinching Game 5? Where do they need to be better, and why now, more than ever, focus is so important for the team? It's all coming today with Kevin Bowen on the Locked On Pacers podcast.
You are Locked On Pacers, your daily Indiana Pacers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What up, y'all? Happy Thursday, and welcome into another edition of the Locked On Pacers podcast, where we, of course, talk about the Indiana Pacers, as always. My name's Tony East. I cover the team for Forbes, and today, wrapping up a very exciting Game 4 for the Pacers and looking ahead to Game 5. A lot of stuff went well on Tuesday night for the Pacers. What is repeatable? What stood out about it? Can they do it again in a potentially series-clinching Game 5? What do they need to do better? There's some lineups the Knicks keep having that they need to solve. And then we get into the importance of focus. And specifically, where do these games going forward all rank as the most important the Pacers have ever played? To be clear, I did not say this while we were talking. I meant in their NBA franchise history. Obviously, the NBA championships would be very high up there. Kevin Bowen from 107.5 The Fan joins us to break it all down today. I'm a little sick, so you'll hear me be stuffy at the beginning, but let's just get right to it. You hear him every morning. You read him all the time, especially when the Colts are booming. It's Kevin Bowen from 107.5 The Fans, the morning show, and writing on the website. Kevin, the Pacers have 3 wins in the conference finals. Your statue man just had his best playoff game. Tyrese Haliburton just had one of the best, maybe 5 games given the stage in Pacers history. They're on the doorstep of the NBA Finals. Who saw this coming? What a playoff run they're on. We're going to talk about Game 4. We're going to get into Game 5. But how are you just feeling about where the Pacers are at and the run that they're currently on?
It's amazing. I think you just laid it out really well there, Tony, at the start. And by the way, tremendous work from you, as always, here throughout this playoff run. So thank you for that as a listener and as a consumer. But, at 10 and 15, even at the start of the postseason, I don't know. I thought, okay, can you be competitive with Cleveland and get it to 6 or 7? And I don't know, maybe some of the injury stuff opened the door, but still just how thorough they've been. I mean, if you'd have told me they'd be on the brink of the Eastern or the NBA Finals, okay, are these 6-7 game series? Are they slugfest? Are they back and forth? Pacers are 11-3 here in the postseason. Like, they've been certainly the better team in all 3 of these series. Never really been. I mean, you haven't even gotten to that Game 6 yet. We'll see if it happens. And really, Haliburton was tremendous last night. I mean, you pointed to it. Siakam has been awesome these last 2 games. But until that, it's not like they've been at that all-NBA first team. It's not like you've just ridden these 2. Obviously, Haliburton's been great in the clutch. So to throw that in there and say Aaron Nesmith's arguably been their best player, I think just only adds to it.
Yeah, Aaron Nesmith is like in contention because this is a thing now. Conference Finals MVP is a thing. I mean,
really?
Yes. You remember that?
That.
Jaylen Brown got the trophy last year in Indy. He was the first one ever. You don't remember that?
Okay. Wow. Now my mind is racing. Like, you can make cases for about 3 Pacers here.
I'd have to imagine Haliburton will get it because he had a shot bounce 17 feet in the air. That's one of like an iconic NBA shot that had a triple-double with 0 turnovers. But Aaron Nesmith, you mentioned his name, making a name for it. If he has a great Game 5 and they win in New York, I mean, they're going to have to consider it, right?
Well, certainly. Yeah, and how about last night, Tony? I mean, it's just – I didn't see any ill effects. He hit that first running 3 right in front of the Pacers bench. I'm like, oh, wow, laterally, if he looks like that. And I know Brunson had a couple of buckets on him early, but still, I mean, he won that battle, if you will. Over the course of 48 minutes, he's taken a charge with 3 minutes to go in the game. He is he's a special player, and he's wired in a very football mindset-y way, and he just brings toughness. I thought Zach Kiefer had a really good piece in The Athletic. I don't know if you saw this a couple weeks ago, where he made the analogy to the Davis brothers of Andrew Nembhard and Aaron Nesmith. And obviously the analogy doesn't check from a physique standpoint. They're not 6'9" and 250 or whatever the Davis brothers were listed at, but they both play that way. And Nesmith has certainly been on full display here throughout all 3 of these series.
Nate Duncan was all over this. And like, this is what I, mentioned before the game as being a big deal with Nesmith because of his ankle. He's guarding Brunson, right? And so even if he plays, you wonder how that's going to go. With Brunson on him, with Nesmith on him, Brunson 3 for 13, 10 points. Every other shot, 6 for 6, 21 points. I'd say it was pretty good. Crucial time. One, I'm probably a little bit overrating the effort Ben Shepherd is giving, even though he is fighting like crazy. But to do that on a day where he was supposed to be a game time decision and have the offensive impact he did, that was probably the most underrated game anyone had. Like Mathurin, Siakam, and Haliburton stole the show, but that's ridiculous. And like that says everything about who he is and who the Pacers are. What else about Game 4 really exploded in your face? I mean, we could talk about the Haliburton stuff all day if we wanted, but so much of that game was just like that was a top. I actually am going to run through this list with you later, but that was a top 20 most important game the Pacers have maybe ever played. And they got a lot of killer performances.
Yeah, let's just push the individuals to the side for just a second. I thought the reestablishment of their pace,
huge,
like from the onset, was full throttle. I mean, we're talking the Knicks make a layup, and 4 seconds later, the Pacers are making a layup. And like, I am by no means a long distance runner. And when I watch the Pacers, I'm thinking, oh my gosh, they are the kid in the PE class that is sprinting that first 400 meters, sprinting, and then is still, having the stamina to do it again, that second 400 meters and the third 400. I'm like, what? How are you doing that? Like, I could maybe sprint, like maybe the Knicks did sprint in the first quarter last night. That was a back and forth first quarter. And by the end of it, you're like, man, I need to catch my breath watching it. But at every iteration, I said to myself, there's no way New York can last. There's just no way. And the Pacers can. And even when you had the sluggish bench minutes there in that second quarter, Rick's playing the long game. And it obviously paid off. You brought up Brunson's numbers earlier. How about Brunson in the fourth quarter last night?
Yeah.
About of as non-factor as you're going to have for him. And that's saying something because he is, extraordinary talent, particularly late in games. So I would say non-individuals, which we could go for an hour on that. It was just getting back to your pace, getting back to the ball movement, the persistence, picking up full court, the doubles at Cat, all of those things I thought just set the tone of we might not see it on the scoreboard in the first quarter, but we'll eventually feel those effects. And I think you did.
Yeah, I tweeted this and I feel bad like using stats and players when it's just obvious, right? Like we could see when their pace is not there. It's very they just don't look the same. Game 2 of this series, 89 total possessions. That's the Pacers' lowest of the playoffs, right? And some of total possessions, the other team's speed matters too, but that they don't want to play that slow. 94 in Game 3, which was tied for their second lowest. It would have been their second lowest with one fewer possession. That would have been their 2 slowest games back to back. Like we could see it. They're playing a little slower. They acknowledged it after the game. They're like, we got to get the tempo up. Every time you look at Rick Carlisle during a game, after a rebound, after a make, rotating his arm. Let's go, right? Yep. And that's what they want to do. And they know they got a little content when that's the wrong word. Content when they were up 20 in that game, and they slowed down. And they did not do that at all in Game 4. 104 possessions. That's their third most in the playoffs, but the only two with more. 108. Bucks Game 5, overtime, extra possessions. 105, Knicks Game 1, overtime, extra possessions. That was their fastest 48 minutes in terms of raw possessions they've had. A lot of shorter Knicks possessions because they had 17 turnovers, but they did it. They said, we are playing too slow. They knew that their identity was suffering, and they changed it. And like among these many micro changes that they made throughout the game that really mattered, that was to me the biggest one thing that changed their fortune. And they like, I was talking to players before the game. Like they all knew that winning that game was like, yeah, they had like some problem solving to do, but it was mostly just like be yourself again, like play like the Pacers and they will win the game. And they did. And sometimes it's that simple, as much as we bellyache about these 10,000 things that they need to fix that are coming at them. That was it. And they were clearly right.
I think you hit on this as well. I think you and I were both kind of in the same boat. My level of concern, uneasiness, exiting Game 3 was nowhere near the level of the Cleveland series. Yeah. Cleveland series, I thought to myself, okay, are Garland and Mobley all of a sudden healthy? And then the zone. It was those two things. I'm like, all right, if all of a sudden these trends continue, we might have a series here. I didn't feel that way leaving Sunday night at all, because what were the two things the Pacers did arguably the worst on Sunday? They shot it terrible from 3, and they didn't play with pace. Well, those are two things that they do really well typically, or certainly not to that extent. They are not a whatever they were, 5 of 25 on Sunday night from 3. And look at the first quarter last night. Just back to your, Pacers brand of basketball of pace and threes as well. And so that's why again, I wasn't overly concerned going into last night because I didn't think it was that much of what New York did. I didn't think, Shamet and Wright and all of that, or Robinson in the starting lineup. Like, to me, that wasn't some huge factor in the game necessarily. I thought it was more self-inflicted stuff by things the Pacers usually do well.
There are definitely little things that matter, but they're not like, no one's like, wow, are they possibly going to solve this? Like, It's just like a small tweak here or there. And I think pace and those little changes lead into what I want to get to next, which is in a game like that, which some would argue is their best game of the series, what's repeatable and what has to be better. Everybody, short little break to talk about FanDuel. The NBA playoffs, full swing every night, delivers highlight-worthy performances, major momentum shifts, and can't-miss moments. Whether it's a game-winning shot or a breakout player, there's never been a better time to get in on the action. FanDuel makes it easy to stay in the game before tip-off and live with player props, performance trends, and same-game parlays. Fans have more ways than ever to play smart and win big. Who do you think is going to show up in the biggest moments? Tyrese Haliburton's done a nice job of that. Tracking trends can help you build your next bet. And if you combine live prop bets mid-game based on how the action unfolds, you could be a big winner. You've got to read on who's heating up. Why not back it up with the same game parlay? How could a $200 bonus in bets add to the excitement if your first $5 bet hits? New to FanDuel, it's the perfect time to sign up. Head to FanDuel.com and place your first $5 bet. If it wins, you get $200 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sports betting partner of the NBA. I think when they set the pace, shout out to Alex and Facci, when they set the pace, they play well and win a lot. And they can do that, like in any situation. It's not like the Knicks can slow. The only way the Knicks slow them down is when the Knicks slow down the game themselves. And that just leads to a close game, right? The game 3 almost was a Pacers win. It was tied with 97 seconds to go. And that was the Knicks' best chance of actually like grinding the game to a halt. If the Pacers know that they can play their tempo just by being themselves, like that seems repeatable. To me, they generated largely good threes throughout the game. Haliburton took 12, obviously. They still need to up their volume somehow, but like they're going to generate good looks. They're not going to shoot 5 for 25 again. They can take care of the ball. They've been doing that all series. Like even beyond getting to individual performers, because let's be honest, expecting that from Haliburton again seems a little crazy. Expecting Mathurin to have the most points by anyone playing under 13 minutes in a playoff game ever. Good luck, right? Like they're going to need some other guys to step up, but just simply style and execution-wise, a lot of what they did, I'm like, yeah, they could do that again. Like I've seen them do that a ton in this playoffs.
Yeah, road and home too, I would add. Sometimes when it shifts buildings, you think, certain things aren't as reliable, but and to be fair to the Knicks, that they've shown that they can do it away from home as well. But yeah, I guess to boil it all down, I just can't see the Knicks any way, shape, or form, all of a sudden getting the game at their pace for 3 straight and being able to pull it off. I don't think you were necessarily going there, but that was the prevailing thought I had, watching last night of like, boy, okay, if they get 5 at home and then all the pressure is on Indiana in 6, if you want to, kind of play at that game because you don't want to go there for 7. Of course, you won on their floor in game 7 last year, but I'll be curious what it looks like on Thursday, but Towns clearly laboring with the left knee.
Yeah, and hard a little bit.
Well, yeah, and I'll throw Anunoby. TNT showed a great replay late. It was unfortunate. Siakam fell right on Anunoby's.
I didn't see that.
Foot. I forget which foot it was, but he labored there for just a second. And obviously, they've got to fly home. That's a little thing that Neesmith didn't have to do after game 3. Now New York had to get on a flight last night. What does that do to those injuries? So that's where I feel like the deeper these series go. And, next round, it might not be the same advantage. Although I must say the Thunder haven't been in a whole lot of, hey, 3 minutes to go in a game this season. Are you ready to go type of moments like the Pacers seemingly are in every night. That is starting to wear. It's not to the Cleveland series, but I'll be very curious. Towns, Anunoby, Hart. I think we're seeing it with Brunson, 4 of 17 until he got in the game late the other night, made a couple plays, wasn't his normal self, certainly yesterday, especially late. That's kind of what we saw last year in the series too.
Shamet was hurt mid-game at one point. Like the wear-down effect catches everybody, and you're starting to see what the Knicks being like, we can't keep up with this pace. Like if the possession flows the way the Pacers want with the amount of passes they want, you will mess up at some point. Even the best defenders will mess up at some point. And so like it doesn't matter what the matchups are, just eventually something bad will happen. Someone will be open. Tyrese Haliburton will jump in the air and spin, and everybody will freeze for a second. And hey, look, the Pacers just scored some points. Like it's just It's been ridiculous to see this. You mentioned Game 7 last year. That was the funniest. Now that the series is where it's at, like maybe they don't win another game in MSG this series. They've already won twice. That was the funniest talking head point thing ever of the can the Pacers win at MSG. It's like they've won every road game they've played except for one this whole playoffs and won a Game 7 there last year. How did that become a thing? Like if it happened 10 years ago, sure, it happened 12 months ago. That made no sense to me.
I know there are times the national media you just shake your head, and I get it. Covering 30 NBA teams or 32 NFL teams would be difficult, but come on now. That was last year one of the
high profile game,
right? One of the more marquee moments of the postseason, and even the Knicks. It's not like the Knicks have been some juggernaut at home this year in the postseason. Like that's where they've lost, several times. So, yeah, that's why they've got Tony East. That's why they've got setting the pace, et cetera, et cetera.
That's why they've got the fan.
Thank you.
Yes. Okay. Stuff that needs to be a little better before I want to wax poetic about how important every game is at the end of this. These Cat plus 2 defenders plus no Brunson lineups are giving the Pacers a lot of trouble. And in game 1, in the fourth quarter, I thought that's kind of weird, but like I guess I get how that just happened. It was different. In game 3, I thought, oh man, like this might be a thing. Like Delon Wright looks really good in these lineups. What's going on here? And then in game 4, I'm like, okay, this is clearly a trend. The game is now tied at 51 because Cat's going crazy and all these other guys are helping. It doesn't seem like that should be a problem. They have one guy who can create and score in that group. And it's not even a guy who's creating for others. It's just Cat scoring. Like they have other good players on the floor, but they have really struggled with that group for some reason. Maybe it's that the Knicks actually just have some defensive verve on the floor when that's the 5 they go to. But I've been surprised by how effective it's been, and I think it's something the Pacers need to solve.
Yeah, that is a good point. I have tried to shift my brain a little bit to be like, all right, put yourself into optimistic Knicks view outside of a home crowd naturally providing a lift. What else? And yeah, that is a lineup that they have had success with. I do think, I know maybe you didn't feel it fully last night, but I do think the consistent doubles to Towns
We're better.
Yeah, we're better. And again, just over time, does that prove to be beneficial to you? And again, how effective is he with those doubles? There's times where it might not be the most graceful looking, but he is able to make his way around said defender. And next thing you know, boom, he's at the rim and he's laying it in. If all of a sudden he's not 100%, maybe that doesn't look as effective, and vice versa. I thought Turner had a couple of maybe unorthodox Turner sort of moves in the paint last night on him, but it worked. And I was like, whoa, I'm not necessarily used to that when Turner has a big on him. Can those be more effective there? So, the other thing is too, I weirdly, like when Deuce McBride catches it, I feel like he should have more of a green light. I do feel like he's a guy that's capable of just kind of filling it up a little bit, especially when they haven't really gotten great consistent stuff from the perimeter, really from anybody else. I guess Bridges threw in a couple there late, but still, he would be one. We've seen the Robinson in the starting lineup. It is a little bit more of McBride, something they go to. I will say something on Robinson. I know he had the flurry in game 1 and he had a little bit last night. I mean, they have been outstanding compared to Boston in just kind of keeping him at bay. And I think you have to throw in the bar, knowing how the Pacers typically rebound and how Boston handled him. That has been something that the longer the series goes, I tend to think those hustle elements, it's more difficult to sustain that individually. But that would be another thing of in that own building. If they're able to create a few of those, those can be plays that might even be bigger than just whatever 2 or 3 on the scoreboard.
Mitch has been really good. My respect for him has skyrocketed this series. I do wonder. I feel like every game he's better in the first half than the second half. And I just wonder if it's because like he played 15 minutes a night all season and he only played 19 minutes in game 4. So that game doesn't necessarily apply, but like he has to stretch out his impact so much more than normal. That guy didn't play till like February or January. I can't remember when he debuted this year, right? It's just they're asking a lot of a guy they don't typically ask a lot of. And so his best moments look awesome, but then they like the wear down effect, I think, really hits guys like him who aren't used to that. It's funny you mentioned McBride. Like he wasn't by his own standards that great in game 4. They lost his minutes by 14. He's 1 for 3. And everyone who covers the Knicks is like, play him more, like get him on the floor. And I agree. Like he actually can dribble towards the rim and make shots and find open little crevices here and there after the Knicks somehow end up with the ball after a scramble for like the 10 gazillionth time. So I don't know what the Knicks are like going to change rotationally, but they had a lot of success relying on their bench guards in game 3. They did it less in the 4th game. They went to Precious. That didn't work. I don't think the Pacers are going to be worried about a bunch of Knicks rotational changes. I think the Knicks are just going to hope to play better with the guys they have and try to unlock Brunson Cat in some way, because Brunson has been, like, he just had 30 points again. Cat's been mashing with those lineups we already talked about, but like their lineups together, some of that's that the Pacers have 2 defenders to pick on. Some of it's just that they haven't synced offensively, just haven't been that threatening, right? And so when you look at stuff that has to be better, it's not those moments for the Pacers. They've been very good against the duo of those two throughout the series. It's very interesting.
Yeah, I mean, I'm trying to check myself because it's like, man, I didn't feel much uneasiness at all after game 3 for game 4. And I don't sit here today and feel, and, some of the series shifts back home and, like there naturally should be some of that, but I don't know. The Pacers got back to who they are, and I would argue that the Knicks labored a little bit more too compared to the Pacers. If Nesmith wouldn't have played or would have looked ineffective or aggravated something, maybe, but I saw none of that, and I just saw, Towns and Anunoby and Hart, a little bit more in that realm. So I don't want to act like, the Pacers are going to go there and it's going to be a layup, but I mean, if you made me pick, I would definitely pick the Pacers to win on Thursday night, and by no means would I think if it was a game 6, I'd almost feel a little bit like, Bucks game 6 last year. Maybe not to that extent, but that's kind of what's, top of mind for me.
And they had the urgency last year in that Bucks game 6 after an alarming game 5. That was still probably the lowest moment to me of the Pacers playoffs the last 2 years, when they were playing the no Dame, no Giannis Bucks up 3-1 and didn't just lose. They like got embarrassed, and we were like, oh, maybe they don't have it. And now they're 1 game from the finals. We'll see. I would also pick them in game 5. They've just been straight up better than the Knicks, like, for much of the series. And obviously a lot of clutch time play will make Knicks fans be very frustrated about the results of the series to this point. But like, they were tied with 97 seconds to go in game 3. Like, that's a coin flip basically at that point too. They had all the momentum. I'm not taking that game away from New York, obviously. That's just life. That's how it is. They got to focus. They're 1 game from the finals. I get that there's going to be a lot of distractions. Press clippings, as Rick Carlisle broke out after the Cavs series, which was very awesome and old school of him to break out. I'm going to first say this. I've been thinking about this a lot, and I've been like suggesting it to people in the arena of late, trying to contextualize where in Pacers franchise history, every game they play the rest of the season, even if they lose the next 3, where it ranks in franchise history in terms of importance of the game. So they play in the 2000 NBA Finals. That's 6. Okay, that's the 6 most important games the Pacers have ever played, no doubt. Okay, 2. They were up 3-2 in the 1994 Conference Finals against the Knicks. They lost the last 2. That's 2. They were down 3-2 against the Magic the next year. So game 6 was pretty important. Game 7 more important. That's 1. Down 3-2 in the 1998 Eastern Conference Finals. That gets to game 7. 2-2 in the 1999 Eastern Conference Finals against the Knicks. Game 5 was huge. 2004 Eastern Conference Finals against the Pistons was 2-2. That's another one. 2013 Conference Finals, they were down 3-2 versus the Heat. That game 7 was huge. So it's very clear the elimination games of those, or the chance for the Pacers to win 1 game and make the finals, there's 7 of them, plus the 6 finals games. You could say that game, and then if they win, it goes into the top 10 behind the finals games they've already played. I don't know the context of some like second round series or like how these 2-2s felt or all that. It's very possible it gets knocked down a few pegs if you really go back in time. But just from that perspective, that is the only hurdle that like we cannot bake into basketball analysis equations. It's just like all of a sudden you are staring fate in the face and you're playing top 15 most important Pacers games ever, all time. Like, if you've lived in Indy your whole life, you've seen this once every 20 years. That changes guys, right? Like, that changes your approach, that changes your focus, that hits you mentally. I don't know what it will do to the Pacers. They won a game 7 in the Garden last year. They played very well against Boston with like no hope of winning that series last year after Haliburton got hurt. Like, they've done well even in large settings the last 2 years. It's just even game 4 was among the top 25 to 20 biggest games the Pacers have ever played. Every game, Rick Carlisle talks about this all the time. Every game is more important and more challenging than the last, but now it's really there, right? With the opportunity in front of them. So focus is huge. And like that kind of aspect of this is going to be really interesting to me.
Yeah, and I mean, I hate to look ahead, but I will. I mean, I guess you could make the statement that, like, I don't know, they're slightly more equipped and a little bit more veteran than Oklahoma City. Equipped isn't the right word, but certainly more
They're very
experienced.
good. They're very good.
Right. But I mean, like, that starting lineup's 26 and under. Nobody's been,
Right.
in these moments, whereas Siakam certainly has. And, even Turner just off of a pure game standpoint.
Champion Thomas Bryant has.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, Thomas Bryant, Alex Caruso can be honored at the start of this series. There's a game that always sticks out to me, Tony, just because it was in, I don't know, such a big kind of like age for me was, they were up 2-1 on Miami in the 12 semifinals. It was an extra day in between game 3 and 4. You're up 2-1 and you have game 4 on your home floor. And at that point, Dwayne Wade had been terrible in the series. And there's this mythical, I think, true story where Dwayne Wade drives down to Bloomington and visits Tom Crean, and they have a long talk. And next thing you know, game 4 happens, which again, the extra day off in between home games, which is kind of weird. And Wade plays great. LeBron looks like LeBron. And then instead of going up 3-1, that becomes 2-2. Miami's got home court. So it is kind of funny when you look back on some of those series where, what the old could have beens. But yeah, I mean,
that would vault some of the games I just mentioned. Like if you go up 3, but like I didn't go back to second round series for this.
But at this point, I mean, all of it, we got dudes calling in the show asking about the parade, and I'm not, and I'm not laughing. I mean, Tony, you and I had this conversation a couple weeks ago. Like, I'm starting to look at my off-season vacation, and it's like, wait a minute, Game 7 of the NBA Finals would be when? Like, it's just, it's unbelievable. And unlike '98 with Michael, unlike 2000 with Shaq and Kobe, unlike 12, 13, 14 with LeBron, Wade, and Bosh, and even unlike last year with a full-strength Boston team, there's not that. And again, I want to credit Oklahoma City, but there is a been there, done that factor that I think just takes teams to another level. And until you do it, everyone always kind of looks at you like, yeah, you're the bridesmaid. And I'm not going to believe it fully until you do it. And unfortunately, like Cleveland is probably a poster child of it or I guess fortunately for the Pacers. But so that is something that I think, can and will be a big storyline. But yeah, man, at this point, I mean, last night, getting that win and all of these games just rise in the magnitude and the history of this franchise. And late May and June, you tweeted it last night. I mean, you've guaranteed yourself a game in June. I mean, imagine saying that at 10-15.
We're 9-14, and they beat Chicago, and they had that long practice session, and everything felt great. And then they lost the Hornets at home, and everything was terrible again. That was the weirdest week ever. I thought, like, they looked awesome in Chicago. They made a bunch of threes, and I thought, oh, cool. Oh, boy. Oh, gosh. Well, Here they are. Kevin, I'm sad I didn't make you talk about your guy, Ben Mathurin's insanely good game. That was just ridiculous. But you have places to be. We all have a lot to do. The feverish Caitlin Clarkless era begins tonight. I have some words to get on a screen. Thank you very much for the time. I know people who listen. Someone came up to me last night and told me they like my podcast and they like hearing me on the morning show. So there you go. Where can people find you and the things you say and do with Indianapolis sports?
Well, when your sleep schedule calls for it, we'll get you back on here for the NBA Finals. If I could throw in 30 seconds on Bennedict Mathurin.
Yes.
A 22-year-old in his first playoff experience. I think we all just need to remind ourselves of that. Like, and I know I'm not speaking to you. I'm you, Tony East. I'm speaking to many others. It's like, yes, since the DeAndre Hunter incident, it's been bad, but he is a 22-year-old in his first ever playoffs, and he is insanely talented. And I think the Siakam reaction after the 3 last night told you everything you needed to know about how the Pacers view him and want him to continue to grow and all of that. Yes, 107.5 The Fan. We do a morning show, 7 to 10 a.m. on the Pacers flagship right here, ESPN affiliate. Rick Carlisle on with us every Tuesday at 8. And last night met 5-0 when Rick Carlisle comes on our show, day of games in the postseason.
How many finals games are on Tuesdays?
Boy, that's a great question. I got the schedule right. You have the schedule. None of them. Oh, man. No. Pacers might need a petition to move some of these finals games schedules.
That's brutal. That is brutal. How are they going to do that? I love when Rick comes into his pregame media sessions and says, "Did you guys listen to me on the Fan? Do you remember? I already addressed this."
How about last night? He kind of took the indirect shot at me. Some guy, on my radio show, some guy was asking me.
I didn't ask James who asked that. It was you.
Asking me about numbers. I'm like, well, yeah, my hand is raised. So yeah, I thought about texting him, but I thought, you know what?
Some of that stuff, like when he's saying it, sounds corny to a fan, but like that is who Rick is. Like he is being 100% sincere when he talks like that.
1,000%. I mean, all of it. I mean, the whole
Yes.
Rick experience that you see post game, and I know you deal with it much more regularly than I. And 8 a.m.s with us, that is 1,000% him.
Well, thank you, Kevin, very much. This was fantastic. Back tomorrow after Game 5. Will it be over? Will the Pacers be coming home, hoping to get it done? We'll break it all down right here. Thank you all so much for listening. See ya very soon.